Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Changing Hearts and Minds series. We are doing a special version with my colleague Yangbo. Hi, Yangbo. How are you?
Very well. Hello there, Ellza.
All right, so we are moving into how do we shape perceptions and strengthen communities and really focus on community well-being as a topic, which is very loaded. There's a lot of things to unpack there. But the goal is really to transform communities by enhancing the perception and making the community more connected, as well as to engage in first, second, and third place, where they live, where they work, where they play. So you and I do have a workshop around this particularly. So we'll kind of frame it in that lens because I think that's much more digestible for our audience, given how massive this program can be. But there are two lenses that we have to look at this. One of them is how do we secure the well-being of all of the community members, including the vulnerable populations and those that have maybe more limited resources than the average community member. And two, how do we make the community members agents of change in their own lives as well as in the community? So we have a sense of belonging, and we have also an enablement factor that we can leverage for community members to take advantage of. Now, in our workshops, we do the perception side and then we do the sustainability side, and the two go hand in hand. I'd love your take on just the elements that the sustainability side, INNOVO side would goes through in those two strategies when it comes to strengthening connectivity in a community.
Great. So let's start with the immediate focus on sustainability, that it's one of those necessary but not sufficient elements, especially when it comes to, say, environmental quality, for example, climate, and all of these other issues. So as INNOVO, we are a project finance accelerator where we aim at helping the world achieve zero emissions and zero waste profitably in alignment with the Paris Agreement, whatever sustainability goals one has put forward, and do so in a way that is going to be profitable to all of the parties so that it's not just a question of environment, but something that can be also fiscally viable. And if we broaden that a bit, that a common thread with these strategy labs and these pre-lab workshops is we focus on building on the strengths, building on existing assets. And in a way, we can call it, it's been a term that is getting renewed interest, but it's been around for decades, asset-based community development, or ABCD, as you would call it. And it's really reframing, say, what could be deficiencies, what could be gaps, reframing those as now their agents, saying now what could be done, what can they draw on, what do they already have, what assets do they already have that they're able to draw on, and then enable them to pursue that so you can then get a virtuous cycle of community and public wealth accretion going.
Yeah, because I think you make a really good point on the financial aspect, because often strengthening community seems like uh, while a do good program sounds great, it is financially costing without realizing the financial benefits of these initiatives. When you have numerous agents operating on your behalf to a particular community sense, you have not only the perceived value of that destination from a local and outward population, but that then makes it much more attractive from an investment standpoint whether it be, collar or even foreign direct investment coming into the play. It could be new business formations because of the model and the ability to all align toward one initiative. It could also increase migrating populations to that destination as opposed to potential competing destinations as elements. So there's a lot of fiscal responsibility in these initiatives and financial gain, both across tourism, across new tax avenues that they can go into, or greater tax avenues that can be done on a local level, as well as further prosperity for the members that reside in that community and participate in that community in some way. And part of that in our workshops is really identifying those strengths. Where do you do best? Where do you operate best in that is so inherently authentic that we don't have to recreate the wheel. It's already there. It's more about bringing that to light and making it known, and making everyone else participate on an active level and come to that realization that often our workshops are much more, formulation around how do we go to the market around it versus identifying those strengths, because those are often easier, at least on the perception side, to identify, because it's just such an organic path to identify them. Then the work becomes, in a lot of our workshops, is how do we make that known? How do we make that come to life and build a reputation, a perception for it? And that could transcend in a numerous set of ways, specifically because we have partners and other partners that can help us along the way, whether that be this new technology that's coming into play, or a new facility being organized, or INNOVO's project finance initiative for the sustainable technologies that we've identified to offer support. All of these start to kind of align together in a way that um, creates community connectivity without even beginning the program. And that's kind of one of the really nice parts about the pre-lab workshops and the strategy lab, is it creates this massive alignment around where that community is going and how to leverage it further into play. Um, I let's talk a bit more about the financial side, because I think that's a very common conversation around it. Normally, our pre-lab workshops are, a day or so, talking to several key members and working with several key members to facilitate a plan forward around it. And I want to talk more about the new business opportunity that occurs when there is this strengthening of community. On our side, it's very black and white. It's when people see, when there's a perception of a community, being up and coming, or being more connected and saying we should work together on this particular business venture. That's easy. But the technology side that I think INNOVO has actually brings some tangible opportunities, whether it be supplemental businesses that need to be provided, or corporate entrepreneurs that need to come into the fold to make that happen. So let's talk about the financial aspects of those new businesses post uh post those facilities coming into play, or those technologies being implemented.
Yes, and on the finances, so first, to set the stage here, it's good we're focusing on the financial and fiscal aspects, since increasingly it's becoming known, but still it's not quite what I would say common knowledge. But if you were to map a community, if you were to map it by fiscal and financial productivity, so we have emphasized previously value per unit land area, how fiscally financially productive it is, your land use is, what you'll often find is that the lower income places that are often perceived as poor, or relatively in or declining or not, they actually are some of the fiscally more productive places if you look at them from a per unit area basis. So right there, that should be telling you where would one be best allocating one's assets. It's in those that, of course, that will get you your productivity. That'll be the most productive. That gets you the highest returns, all while benefiting the community a lot more broadly. And with INNOVO, what that further enhances is by improving environmental quality, getting rid of landfilling or incineration, eliminating CO2 emissions, removing exhaust flue stacks from heavy industry so that whatever is vented out would then be used in higher value production, circular economy, as we would say, then that is going to further enhance the value, the asset value across those communities that otherwise would be very much more exposed to these environmental yes, these negative environmental factors, we say.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the benefits far outweigh the risks associated because these are somewhat of a more softer approach. I think that the diligence that is often done between you and I and between INNOVO and BMG as well as our collective partners to kind of say this is where we go. And also another part of that, and I know we discussed this in a previous episode around by siloing these streams, making sure we have connected alignment, but siloing them in the sense that they're not dependent upon each other, we have a greater opportunity for impact because we've removed the dependencies.
Yeah,
When these,
compartmentalizing them, that's
yep,
what we manage to do. And it's because all of these are worth pursuing on a standalone basis, that you don't actually need any other component to justify any one of them, except that if you have these other elements, then you can get synergistic effects from each that you'll likely find that it's going to be much more multiplicative than additive in terms of your outcomes and impacts.
exactly. I think that's a really good way of phrasing it. And we'll put the link to inquire further on our workshops because they are the pre-lab workshops are day long to really kind of start that conversation and garner it. And this is a great time for those that are um in the pattern of inquiry at the moment and especially as the new year rolls around. Any other last minute tidbits that we want to include, Yangbo?
Yes, and really all of this is a focus on just a key aspect of impact over intent and outcomes over process, since that's your only surefire way of actually getting wins, getting significant enough wins that this will then just perpetuate, because what our goal here is to be able to, well, not only set high expectations, but raise people's expectations. And when people raise their expectations, that is actually then how you select for competence and all of the other attributes you're going to need in order to execute those things in a very robust and very efficacious manner.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Well, I think that as we start to kind of understand the sheer anthropological need of further connected communities in regardless of rural, suburban, or urban models, that is one that is gonna start to come in, and it's going to probably hit in the next couple of years pretty strongly. We'll put the links at the bottom of the episode brief, but thanks again for taking the time to chat with me, Yangbo. This has been great.
Yes, indeed. Very welcome, and thank you for organizing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone.